Okay, so now we're getting into the fun stuff. We're gonna be talking about how to license and looking into the tools that we use to help figure out how to make an educated decision on how much to charge for each image and for each usage. So first, it would be starting with understanding, hey, you wanna know how are you gonna use the image? Is it gonna be print, web, both? How long do you need the image for? 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. And then do they need exclusivity? Most of the times they don't, but it's important to be able to ask these questions so at least like they're even aware. And those are kind of like the basic starting points of a question of the email that we would ask. And so now talking about the software that you can use, one tool is, my favorite is Cradock Pro, Cradock Software's Foto Quote Pro. I've used 7 for a couple of years now, and I really, really like it. There's also Getty Images pricing calculator where you can actually just go in and see what the images are. And then you can also just ask photography friends. However, everybody's gonna have different experiences, and depending on what industry they're in, they may have completely different answers. So here's Foto Quote Pro. It's this little small square, and it has a lot of different features, but for the sake of it, I don't really use a lot of them. I just use this, the Foto Quote Pro section, and specifically mostly stock, but we'll go over a few features. I was recently asked, hey, can we put some images together for a visitor's guide? So one of the things I can do is I go to search and I can type in visitor's guide and it shows me, hey, this is an editorial print, it's down here, and it has all of these different options that I can choose from. So the first thing we'll notice is there's this coach that gives us like different ways to kind of go through and process like how to role play the conversation and what your agenda is, but I don't really worry about that too much. I'm just using this as a reference so that way I feel confident making my prices. Over here we have a press run. This is referring to the circulation. How many people are gonna get it? 3 to 5 million versus 1,000, different price. So 3 to 5 million, that's an extra $1,000. 1,000, it's $300. Then we're talking about the size, size matters. If it's a quarter page, a front cover, back cover, wrap cover, 3 to 5 million. So it could be as big as $5,000 to as little as $300 just for the same image, just depending on how it's used. This is why it's so important to have these conversations. Another thing to consider is, I don't really use this much. I do sometimes with the drone, but if you're getting models, if you're doing all of these extra stuff, you can use this to help you figure out where you should price it. One thing I did forget to mention is this is a range. So on the lower range is 240, on the higher end is 500, and it's kind of just splitting the difference. So you can, this isn't a concrete thing. This is a guideline to help you make an educated decision on how to price it. I talked a little bit about worldwide, national, local, blah, blah, blah. Here's how you might be able to add that into it. Basically, the more places that you're adding, the more expensive it's gonna be, i.e. worldwide, you just double the price. So we could immediately go from as little as $300 to as much as $12,000. Again, that's just one example. One of the things that I really, really like about Foto Quote Pro is they check in with agencies and they ask people how much are they charging, how are they doing it, how do they negotiate, and yada, 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 and they give this information back, and that's how they're coming up with these prices. And it doesn't just work with stock. Stock meaning you already took the photos, you've already done the work, and now you're just gonna license them. But what if you get asked to go on an assignment? Well, you have an assignments tab. I don't use it that often, but I think it does have some great stuff. So we can come in here and something I might shoot would be like a hotel. So it would say, hey, rates are between $1,500, $2,500. If it's a local or regional one, it's a little bit less, kind of like on the nationwide or kind of like the worldwide usage. We're also talking about like the assignments, but it gives these different like negotiating things from this photographer's experience, which is nice. You get to tap into that. So real quick, it says the rates for shooting hotels are between $1,500 to $2,500, and they ask for a buyout. Now a buyout would be kind of like exclusive, in perpetuity, all rights are owned by them. This photographer says that they don't do buyouts. So that's kind of interesting to see this kind of conversation. So they ask why, or the photographer explains, to give buyouts is dangerous because it transports the copyright and they can do whatever they want. I like this person. Most of the time the client, the marketing manager, the PR person takes the picture with them. So especially if you shoot a picture that can be a generic picture like a fitness or a center, and they use it again and again. It says, but most hotels change the decor in 5 years anyway, so the picture is obsolete. So he offers them a 5-year unlimited usage instead of buyout. And this is a great way to think and have conversations with our potential clients, because we're trying to build a solution that works for both of us. And why does the hotel want a buyout? One, because it's their lobby, they don't want anybody else trying to use it. Two, it's easier for the manager to just have the image and never have to worry about like, oh, when does my license end? When do I have to take these photos down? Like it's just one less thing to worry about. So you're charging for that convenience. And that's one of the things that Foto Biz Pro does, is it lets you like track your licenses, and then it lets like, I don't have it all set up, but I think it lets you track your, license tracking, and you can figure out when it expires and blah, 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 blah. But sticking with the assignments, this is a really, really great tool to help you kind of get an idea as to, you know, what kind of photography services you might be offering. It has an interview with the art of negotiation, so you can go in through and you can get a little bit of, you know, role playing in. And so this is a really nice thing that I have. Again, it's to give you some confidence, get an idea of how to price yourself. So earlier I said that we're mostly going to talk about social media and web usage and also video. We haven't really talked about that. So let's go ahead and take a look. So in Photo Biz, for whatever reason, they do not have social media, which I asked why and I haven't gotten an answer. I haven't heard back yet. I just wanted to record this. So let's go into the presentation from when I had Photo Biz 7. And if we're looking in here, in our editorial and corporate web, you'll see that it says social media and worldwide market. Social media is worldwide. I don't know why I had all those other things, but social media, it's online, it's worldwide. Anyhow, so if you had an image or a video and it was on their site for a year, it'd be $300. So we charge $250 per image. That's the sweet spot that we have found. Now, what we also do, we'll bulk price. If they buy 10 images, we'll give it to them for $2,000. So that's a savings of $500, or like, I don't know, 25%. That is how we do it. And I think on here, it had, on Photo Biz Pro, you can also go back into, kind of jumping around, but editorial print, you'd have TV and film footage. So then here's where you would go ahead and check in, you know, what kind of footage do you have? Is it mobile device? You know, maybe boom, you got $700 for it. It just depends on the usage. Another rule of thumb is like, sometimes we see people offer a second of footage for $25 a second. And then it's unedited, you just send it to them, it's $25 a second for whatever they end up using. Okay, so let's take a look at some very specific examples. I think I pulled them up on my computer. Here's an email that we got from a client. Email says, can you let me know your pricing for photo licensing? Please include the cost of purchasing all the photos versus selects. Thank you. So in this situation, basically what they're saying is, hey, what if we just did a media buyout and we asked for all of your photos, the whole entire gallery? This is tough because there's probably close to 200 images in the gallery. If we're doing it at $250 a pop for, 200 images, we're looking at quickly $50,000. This is like Apple's budget for a project, not your typical DMO or travel brand. Let's take a look at another example of emails that we've got. Hi, please send over pricing for photos when you can. They'd be looking for full marketing rights of this image. So what do you do if they want full marketing rights? Well, you can again look into FotoQuote Pro. You can come into this section, go to quote pack, because what you're asking for is every possible conceivable license imaginable, which is crazy. But like, let's say for example, it's a all marketing material, all advertising pack, and they want it for a year. Now you're looking at $13,400 just for a single image. Let's say they want all advertising and marketing, boom, 21. So typically in this part of the industry, they're not working with these kind of budgets. This is, Pepsi, Apple, Fortune 500 companies. So now you gotta figure out how to be strategic with your conversation. And what we have adopted is we sit there and say, hey, are you sure you need all of that? We wanna find a solution that's economical for you, because what you're asking for, and I'll really light it out, you're asking us to give you a license for every conceivable use. Whether it's a cup, a postcard, a billboard, an ad on a urinal, it could be used in all of those ways. And so we have to just come up with a number in order to cover that. And it costs, close to $20,000. So I think, let's see, how did we respond? They said, we found in past the destinations are looking for social media rights, website usage, brochure or magazine, Full marketing rights would entail us to create a license and charge for all of those usage and more, which typically ends up being more expensive and not needed, especially if they only want to end up using it for magazine or print. If you don't mind asking how they plan on using it or imagine they might use it, we can better accurately price it so they aren't overpaying for the usage. So we're trying to work with them to help them realize that they're not overpaying instead of scare them off. Because if we just came with $20,000, the conversation's over. Also, if it ends up being a destination guide or a magazine, let us know the circulation. Happy to hop on a call if it's easier, blah, blah, blah. Then they came back and said they don't have a specific use in mind, but could see it used via social and possibly print. Given the unknown, it might make sense for our pricing. So we've pushed back and forth, let them know, hey, we don't think you need all of this, because we're also aware, like we've had conversations where we tell them the price and it's just like, who do you think we are? Like, and then you get a bad reputation. You don't want that. So boom, we sent it over. I think we ended up negotiating. So let's just take a look. Let's just hop in here and see how we did it. So we know $250 is for social. So typically with travel and tourism, with working with smaller budgets, or at least they have with us, instead of going to advertising print, we normally go into editorial print, and then we just find something comparable. So maybe she's gonna say magazine, and so it's a print, and then we'll find something around here, and we're like, okay, I don't think it's gonna be a visitor's guide, so maybe I need to find something else. Magazine is 200. Okay, so maybe not. Maybe we'll go to advertising print. So the only thing with this language is it's a little ubiquitous. The client's disadvantage by doing that is I have to kind of overcompensate. So I'm gonna try to find something a little bit more on the expensive end and let her know. So it's a magazine, advertising, boom, $500 to $25. And full page could be $1,000. So now I have to sit there and think, like, what do I want to do with these 3 images that I want to give her? And now it's just kind of a guess thing, like, what do I feel comfortable with? I know that they're curious about 3 images at $750, or and that's $250 a pop. I might be able to double this. And so I think that's gonna be my approach. Is we're just gonna say we'll offer them for that at $500 a piece, and then we'll see what she says. And boom, she got back. She's good with the $1,500. And voila, now that's easy. Just a couple emails back and forth, and it's an extra $1,500 on our end. So we've covered some of the basics of FotoQuote Pro and figured out why I like it so much to help us come with an educated basis on how to approach these conversations. When we're working with brands outside of travel industry, these numbers, we don't even hesitate. We know we can just send them out exactly whatever the middle line is. Sometimes we'll even add some money to it. But when we're working with tourism boards, these numbers don't add up. A lot of them are government funded. They're funded by Brand USA. And if you're paying attention to the current politics, Brand USA got their budget cut by 80%. So a lot of these brands are funded by heads and beds and or by government money. So that's just the reality of the situation. A lot of the clients that we're working with, they traditionally work with traditional media, and content creators are kind of new. And so this isn't, these contracts and these kind of these campaigns haven't always been around. So they may just not know, and or these people are doing a staff of 10 people and it's just 1 or 2 people on the team. So we want to work with them. And like I said, we found that when we come with this pricing tool, it's too difficult. So I'll tell you how we charge tourism boards. We charge $250 per image, and that's gonna be for web and social use only. So that's only for that. And then we find that if we offer them a bulk discount of 10 images for $2,000, and then we'll kind of start with that. That's kind of our introductory, and sometimes it turns off into other situations. I have a few examples of things that just happened recently that we can run through.